Alright, welcome back to another social studies lecture. Alright, today we're going to do unit number 10 on the cultural impacts of globalization. Now, this unit is going to be quite simple to understand. There's two main concepts you need to understand, and everything else is just examples. Okay, so this is the second impact or second genre of impact that we're going to study with regards to globalization. Okay, there's one more left, which is the security impact of globalization, which is unit 11, which we'll talk about in the next lecture. Now, let's get straight into it. Okay, so these are the learning objectives, like always. Right, just take some time to look it over. Okay, let's go. So apart from economic impacts of globalization that which we learned about in the last lecture, okay, there is also a cultural impact of globalization. All right. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So essentially, remember that globalization. Okay. The idea is what? The idea is about interconnections, right? So when we have greater globalization, all right, there's a greater exchange of culture as well. Did you realize that? Okay, so even though we learn in diversity, right, that cultural exchange promote the idea of diversity, they can also result in cultural homogenization, which is mostly negative situation. Now the word, or rather the prefix homo in Greek means same. So homogenization, okay, is the process of making things similar. Okay, similar is the keyword here. Okay, so now when we talk about homogenization in culture, okay, it refers to how culture is changed, local cultures, how they are being changed by foreign cultures to become similar to the foreign culture. Okay, so originally, these two cultures are completely separate. But because of globalization, okay, the larger, more dominant culture usually, okay, will come to these local cultures, and then they will become more mainstream than the local culture. So they'll essentially envelope the local culture, so much so that the local culture starts to become very, very diminished, and sometimes it can actually go extinct as well. Okay, especially when it comes to a lot of ancient cultures. Okay, so we are also talking about the idea of dominance versus diminishing influences. Okay, so usually the foreign culture is the dominant one, okay, and the local culture is the diminishing one. Okay, so a lot of times it's foreign cultures diminishing local cultures because foreign cultures are more widely practiced as a result of globalization. Okay, for example, English, okay, the use of the English language, the fact that I'm speaking to you right now in English, okay, is an example of this homogenizing effect. Okay, the dominance of English language over other languages, right? It shows us, all right, that there is a homogenizing effect here. Okay, it poses a threat to the existence of other languages as well, if you think about it. Just a very simple example, your mother tongue languages, right? There's a reason, like I mentioned before, there's a reason why we study mother tongue languages in Singapore. Okay, but how many of you actually, you know, prefer to use your mother tongue language over English language? Okay, so that's something to consider when we're talking about, hey, the homogenizing effect of certain cultures. Okay, now there can also be seen in food. Okay, so for instance, kopitiams in Singapore, right? The little coffee shops and hawker centers. Okay, in the past, most people patronize these shops. Okay, because they were part of the Singapore culture. But today, you realize more and more people, especially the younger generation, starts to be more focused or more frequently patronize these restaurants, fast food chains, and all sorts of stuff. Okay, like that is not exactly local to Singapore, but it's slightly more Americanized in nature or westernized in nature. All right, so of course this will lead to the decline of local coffee shops in Singapore as well. Okay, so we actually, if you remember a few years ago, we actually applied for UNESCO intangible cultural heritage status for our hawker centers and our hawker culture. Yeah, so why we did that is because we feel like it's a very unique culture, okay, and it should be preserved. Okay, that's why we applied to UNESCO, and we are now having the commitment, okay, to continue the hawker culture for as long as possible. Okay, so you might want to use hawker culture as an example, especially if you cannot remember any of the other examples in the chapter here. Okay, so because of the threat of this homogenizing effect on a country's culture, okay, a lot of governments do take strict measures, okay, to protect local cultures, especially when it comes as a threat to cultural, moral, and sometimes religious values as well. Okay, for instance, there are some countries who limit the number of foreign films that can be shown in the cinemas, in the local cinemas, okay, just to protect the local people. Okay, so just now we talked about homogenization. Okay, now we're talking about hybridization. These are the two main concepts in this chapter. Please be aware of the difference. Homogenization versus hybridization. Do not get this confused, okay? Because it is a very sad thing when you get these two confused. Now, hybrid. The prefix of this word is hybrid. Now, I'm sure all of you know that a hybrid is a thing that is made from by combining two different things together. That's what we call hybrid, right? So when we talk about it in form of culture, okay, hybridization is the effect, or rather the result of the merger of two different cultures. Okay, so these two different cultures come together to form a new culture, and then this new culture has elements of the original two culture. Okay, so just imagine two things coming together to form a brand new thing. That is what we call cultural hybridization. Okay, now although some may argue, all right, that hybridization, okay, is less has a less negative impact than homogenization, but it really depends on how you go and evaluate, okay, or what is your basis of comparison here. Okay, the point is hybridization can also cause tension in society. Why? Because it is still a dilution of the original culture, right? When we form a hybrid, of course, it's not going to be as authentic as before. Okay, so the authenticity is diminished. Okay, for instance, I don't know if you know, but salsa, okay, is a type of hybridized music, okay, originating New York. It's a mix of actually this Afro-Caribbean rock music and also North American jazz and rock as well. Okay, so it's a combination of these two cultures. That's how you have salsa. Okay, so these two ideas, homogenization, okay, is more dominant, take over the smaller culture. Hybridization is two cultures come together, form a new culture. Okay, please don't mess this up. All right, it's very important that you know the distinction between these two terms. Okay, now we talk about the impact of these two ideas. First one we're going to talk about is the ideas from entertainment. Okay, so there is one thing we need to there's one thing we need to analyze, and that is the American influence. Okay, so there is a large foreign influence on entertainment, especially here in Singapore. Okay, so there's a reason why there has been a lot of resistance towards the inclusion, or rather the influence of foreign culture. Okay, so the American entertainment industry, of course, is, as you know, okay, that it really dominates the world's entertainment today. Okay, for example, what Hollywood movies. Okay, Hollywood movies are basically anywhere in the world you can see Hollywood movies. Okay, and of course dramas from America and whatnot. Okay, they're all prevalent on these media platforms such as Netflix. Okay, so Americanization of entertainment worldwide, this is a very serious impact, or rather a very serious effect of homogenization. Okay, so if we're not careful, all right, American entertainment could completely take over local entertainment scenes. Okay, now there's also a problem about the influence here. Okay, some countries may not like, okay, the influence to their people based off these American entertainment. Okay, as you know, America champions the idea of freedom and individuality. Okay, so this can be seen a lot of times when it comes to their entertainment. Okay, and the problem for some countries is that locals may watch these films, okay, or consume this entertainment, okay, and start to get such ideas of freedom and individuality. Okay, to a lot of governments in certain places of the world, this is not good for them. All right, they okay, their country is not based on this idea of freedom or large amount of freedom. So when people are influenced by this American culture, okay, perhaps they are going to start demanding for more freedom and whatnot. Okay, so to a lot of governments that poses a problem, especially a security civil problem. Okay, but it does have some positive impact as well. For instance, as more Asian women in conservative cultures start to consume more American influences, okay, they may start to want to develop their own independence, which is of course a very positive thing. Okay, so yeah, so there is a positive and negative to it. Depends on who you are and how you which part of the impact you are analyzing. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of students, okay, especially you guys as young people, are probably gonna be very influenced by American entertainment. Okay, not today, but maybe in the future, especially. Okay, it's gonna become more and more prevalent. So these like I said, the cultural influence, okay, of American films, they do have certain threats to local culture, language, and especially our local entertainment industry. Okay, so in certain countries like France and China, okay, they passed laws, okay, that cap the amount of foreign films that can be shown either annually or monthly or whatnot. Okay, so these are all policies, okay, to protect their own local entertainment industry. Okay, and yeah, some tensions can also arise on the global stage. For instance, you can see in the example at the bottom there. Okay, certain American films may portray cultures differently or rather wrongly as to what is actually happening with that actual culture itself. Okay, for instance, when it comes to stuff like the movie there, Kung Fu Panda, right? A lot of the Asians, okay, actually Asian countries complained, okay, about the let's just say kind of is not very accurate representation of the Chinese culture especially. Okay, so there was a lot of debate about this particular film. Okay, and it ended up causing quite a bit of tension between eastern states and western states. Okay, so I think there is still a significant negative impact of such Americanization of entertainment. But then again, alright, this is still your job to evaluate, okay? Using your scale, impact, time, causation, or whatnot. Okay, so more recently, however, there's also been the influence of South Korean entertainment, right? So just like the US, okay, in the past, South Korean entertainment today has also gained this global attention. Okay, for instance, this is what we call the Hallyu or the Korean wave. Okay, where a lot of Korean television, movies, song, music, food, fashion all spread like wildfire all around the world. Okay, for instance, K-pop. A lot of people are very into K-pop now, okay, especially certain groups that have major, massive fan bases all across the globe, not just in the Asian region or whatnot. Okay, uh, Korean dramas, Korean movies, okay, dramas like Crash Landing on You or Squid Game, okay, these things also have a major, major following all around the world. And in fact, Squid Game and Crash Landing on You is on Netflix as well, which makes it even more easier to watch. Okay, so we can see, okay, the impact of South Korean entertainment on the global stage here. Okay, even the products that come as a result, okay, for instance, cosmetic or electronic products from Samsung, right? Samsung is a South Korean company. All these things show us how great the impact of South Korea is on the global cultural scene. Okay, yeah. So, in certain countries, there have been resistance towards this Hallyu or Korean wave. Okay, for instance, most notably in Japan. Now, historically, there have been a lot of tensions between Korea and Japan. Okay, for history students, you should be very clear why. Okay, from 1910 to 1945, Korea was a Japanese colony, and the Japanese treated the native Koreans very, very harshly. Okay, so a lot of people, or rather a lot of South Koreans and Japanese, still remember this tension until today, despite it already ended, or rather with World War II in 1945. Okay, so a lot of people attribute these historical tensions, okay, for the reason for why there's so many Japanese protests against Korean entertainment influence today. In fact, there was once in 2011 where protests were held in front of this TV or one of the channel's headquarters in Japan. Okay, they were protesting against the increasing number of Korean programs being shown on this particular network. Okay, so there are resistance towards such a advent of Korean influence on the world. Okay, now American and South Korean influence are just examples of this effect of globalization on the global culture. Okay, some people may accept them, some people may reject them because they need to protect their own culture as well. Okay, so it's an important point to note, especially when you're asking for recommendations or when you're talking about how to evaluate, okay, whether entertainment, or rather this foreign entertainment, is good, bad, or homogenization versus hybridization. Now, there is another type of impact we can actually look at, which is the impact on food. Okay, so apart from entertainment, we can also look at the impact on food. Now, foreign food is much more uh, accessible to us today. We don't really need to fly all the way to America or Western states for a burger, right? So yeah, so essentially same thing. Okay, people, some of them welcome this, some people protest it. Okay, because again, it still poses a threat to our local food culture as well. Okay, so fast food, okay, is an example of Americanization of our food scene. So brands like McDonald's, KFC, Subway, all these things are Americanization, okay, of our food culture here, especially in Singapore as well. Okay, so there's even a term known as McDonaldization, okay, which clearly shows you the impact of McDonald's on the world. For it to even have a name like that, McDonaldization, is an effect. Wow, it's a keyword here. Okay, so you can tell how large the impact is. Now, so the global presence of these fast food chains, you go anywhere in the world, you can probably find McDonald's or KFC. Okay, so this actually tells you about the homogenizing effect of fast food on the global food scene. And of course, this threatens our cultural diversity of food as well. Okay, so there are some examples here of certain um, non-acceptance, okay, of fast food cultures. Alright, in 1986, Italians protested American food culture because they saw it as a threat to Italian food. Okay, however, of course, this didn't work lah. Okay, as you can tell, McDonald's is still very prevalent in Italy today. 1996, in Bangalore, India, alright, there's a lot of people who protested against KFC expansion. Okay, because not only were they harming the local food culture, they were also harming the land, the agriculture of the city there. Okay, so the KFC, or rather the Western farming practices, they require a lot of fertilizer. Okay, local farmers definitely could not afford that. So they protested against the expansion of KFC because they fear that they will lose their business, okay, to these larger food chains and larger agriculture businesses, okay, who are providing for KFC. Okay, so as you can see, it's not only just a cultural impact. The cultural impact also has a larger societal impact as well. Okay, so this is something you might want to consider, especially for questions like the assertion question or evaluation question in your source-based case study. Okay, so as you can tell, even though there have been a lot of resistance towards the expansion of fast food in a lot of areas, today we still see a growing global acceptance of such fast food cultures. Okay, so it has been expanding globally, okay, for the longest time now. it brings about a lot of diversity of food, okay, and they have also brought about a lot of hybrids. Okay, if you remember, Burger King used to have a rendang burger, okay, which is hybridization, right? If you think about it, rendang being a local Malay meat dish and burger being something from Western culture. So you combine it together, we take two cultures, we combine it together, that's hybridization. Okay, other examples, you can also talk about nasi lemak burger, right, from McDonald's. There's also laksa pesto pasta. Okay, there's a combination of Italian culture and our local Asian culture, which is laksa and pesto, the two different cultures there. Okay, so there's a lot of examples of hybridization you can see all over our local food scene here in Singapore. Okay, so we have on one hand you have your local culture, on one hand you have the authentic Western cultures or foreign cultures, and in the middle you have a lot of different hybrid foods, okay, that come as a result of this hybridization effect. Okay, now you might also want to consider impact on fashion as well. Okay, so it's a similar idea, but mainly we are focusing on food because there's more to say lah. Okay, okay. Also you can also quote the example that in India, alright, McDonald's in India actually they do not offer beef or pork burgers. Okay, in Singapore we don't offer pork burgers because of the Muslim faith here. Okay, in India they have both the Muslim faith and also the Hindu faith. Okay, in large or many people are practicing these two faiths, so they don't offer beef or pork burger. And also a lot of the McDonald's in India also are vegetarian. They have a lot of vegetarian options because a lot of people practice that as well. Okay, so as you can see, hybridization, okay, can take many forms. Okay, sometimes it comes as a result of the dish, sometimes it comes as a result of certain restrictions as well. Okay, but all these still tell you one thing. The one thing is that there is a large homogenizing and hybridizing effect of foreign culture on local food culture. Okay, so today most of the items that we eat, okay, actually incorporate a lot of local and foreign influences. Even in the past, what we consider Singaporean food today, like mee rebus. Okay, mee rebus is actually a combination of a lot of different cultures influence. Okay, come to Singapore, then you get the mee rebus you have today. So in fact, if you go the further north you go in the Malayan Peninsula, all the way up to Malaysia, the different state of Malaysia, to Thailand and whatnot, you actually notice that it's actually similar dish, but there is differing is slightly different because the more influences there are down the peninsula, right? Because from Myanmar to Thailand to Malaysia to Singapore, there's even more influences. So if we go opposite way, the influences might get less and less and less and less. Okay, so a lot of things, okay, that we eat and consume today are a hybrid of local and foreign influences. Okay, generally uh usually a food culture that won't dominate, okay, another, but it is very likely for there to be a hybridizing effect on food. Okay, not so much homogenizing effect but more hybridizing effect. Okay, and with that we are done with this chapter. Alright, like I said, it's a very simple chapter. Okay, so today you've learned about homogenization and hybridization. Okay, these are the two main skills for this chapter. Okay, and everything else is simply the effect of these two particular globalization, or rather the impact of globalization on our culture. Okay, so just get these two keywords fully understood, remember some examples, you should be fine for this particular chapter. Okay, so it's quite simple. Now that's all I have for you. Okay, for this particular chapter, it's quite simple. It was very fast. Okay, but same thing, if you have any questions, okay, you still have about this chapter, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Okay, please subscribe and like this particular video. Okay, we spend a lot of time and effort making these materials and videos for all of you. Okay, so I hope this has helped you better understand the effects of globalization, especially on culture. Okay, So with that, I will see you guys next time in the next lecture. All the best for your revision and good luck for your upcoming assessments. All right, I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye bye.